Thank you, and welcome everyone to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for October 22nd, 2024. We have 3 scheduled public hearings this evening. The first one, 101 Gerard Drive LLC, I'm recusing myself from, so I'm going to turn that over to my vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Deline. The first hearing is 101 Gerard Drive LLC, 101 Gerard Drive in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-41-2-11.2. The project description is to construct a swimming pool and 1,751 square foot first and second story additions, 587 square feet of decking, and a 187 square foot balcony to a 1,016 square foot one-story residence on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the Town Code zoning district is A2 residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10 feet, X flood zone, secret class type 2. So for the record, I'm working from the latest survey, which I believe to be received on October 15th, 2024. And this is my area, so I will, yes. Council, are we in
yes.
compliance with the...
So I am in receipt of an affidavit of service and posting. Everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this hearing. I do want to state for the record and for the board's edification, we received a number of correspondence from either directly adjacent or potentially other neighbors, but a few of them raised the question specifically of notice, so I just want to state for the record that that was raised. Normally I'm just looking that the affidavit is properly executed and notarized. I did look a little bit further into it, and I checked the tax roll and matched the addresses with the mailing receipts, and to me it looks like everything is proper from the town's records, and just sort of generally, because this comes up sometimes if there is a recent transaction, sometimes the town's records will still indicate the prior owner. That could be something that happened here. But sometimes it's the prior owner's obligation to notify the town of their new address. So I will leave it at that, but I can say this now or later to the board. My suggestion would be to perhaps leave the written record open to allow the neighbors to participate, because even ones that clearly had notice because they knew to email or contact the board, were asking for more time. So that's my whole spiel.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Council. This is my area, so I did the field inspection. This is the official notice. The property was properly noticed. Next, please, Brian. This is the framed, this is actually the garage. Oh, no. No, it's not. This is the shed. This is the framed shed on the north side of the property. Next, please. This is taken from Gerard Drive. The gravel drive, the stone that you're seeing, some of it is going to be removed, and the cellar entrance is also going to be removed. And this is the front. Well, this is actually, because it's on water, this is actually considered the rear side of the property, but you're also looking at the area to the south where the proposed additions will go. Next, please. This is, again, the south side, just another angle of where the proposed additions are going to be. And also, if you're looking at your survey, some of the proposed revegetation is going to take place actually all around this property. Next, please. This is a picture of the framed garage on the north side. Next, please. This is, I actually took this from the east, looking toward the west, and tried to get a visual of where the pool is going to actually be at beyond this point where you're seeing. It's not going to be in the front yard, it's going to be in the rear. I might have a better photo, but next, please. This is the rear. Standing behind me is Napeague Bay, and this is just a photo of the residence from the front yard. Next, please. Again, this is just another view of the front yard of the property. Next, please.
That's it.
Well, that's it? Okay, thank you, Brian. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the application?
Good evening, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the board and council. My name is Denise Shern, and I'm an attorney with the Adam Miller Group at 2462 Main Street in Bridgehampton, and I'm here tonight with our planner, Britton Bistrian, on behalf of the applicant, 101 Girard Drive, LLC. As Member Savarese mentioned, the application is for a natural resources special permit in order to expand the size of the residence by 1,751 square feet. Excuse me one moment. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. So this is an application for a natural resources special permit to add an addition to an existing residence that's just over 1,000 square feet. The Clemson family bought the property a couple of years ago, and after living in it rather happily for the last couple of seasons, they've realized that they could use a little bit of extra space in order to fit the family. This is an extended family situation where we have parents who are also residing with a child who's an adult child who happens to be married. So there's 4 people residing in the home, and there will be 4 people residing in the home in the future. They're also seeking a 587 square foot deck, 187 square foot balcony, and a 360 square foot swimming pool. The reason we're here before you tonight is the property contains tidal surface wetlands that are associated with Gardner's Bay. This is a protected natural feature under the town code and requires us to seek a special permit from this board. The way the application has been designed, there is no relief that's necessary from the dimensional requirements. There's no setback relief required from side yards or the wetland or any natural features. It's been designed to be conscientious and sensitive to the environment. The existing clearing on the site is in excess of allowable clearing in HPOD right now at 21,163 square feet, where allowable clearing is 10,453. Part of this project will include revegetating the property so that it will be in compliance with HPOD. This is probably one of our most compelling mitigation measures, in addition to taking out the old septic and putting in the new septic as well. This property is fully bulkheaded. There is over 1,000 linear feet of bulkhead in front of the property. The goal of the addition, as I said, is to provide the family with a little bit more space. There's going to be 2 bedrooms on the first floor, and then there'll be a 1-story addition with a 2nd-story addition on top of it. All of this is landward of the existing house, including the swimming pool. So all the improvements will be landward of the existing structure. While Girard Drive is certainly an environmentally sensitive area of the town, this particular lot in question is located within, quote, the least environmentally sensitive area of the peninsula, as per the technical analysis memo prepared by Brian Frank, dated September 13th of 2024. The law is pretty well settled in New York that with respect to special permits, The goal of the board is to understand that most of these uses are harmonious in the zones in which they are allowed, but there are standards that must be met in order for them to be implemented. We would suggest that the standards here are clearly met. The standards are whether or not the addition will diminish in size, pollute, degrade, or result in any loss or place in any peril the tidal waters that are on the property, so the protected natural feature. I would argue that since most of this addition is more than 100 feet away, and some of it is even further than 150 feet away, that the opportunity for this to actually pollute, degrade, or result in any loss to Gardiner's Bay is slight, if any. There was nothing in the TAM that I could see that pointed out that this would have a negative impact on Gardiner's Bay. In fact, there were some recommendations in there which we have implemented. One of them was making sure that the swimming pool is situated so that we deal with the highest possible groundwater level at the time. So that's been resolved so that we won't ever have a situation where the bottom of the pool is closer than 2 feet to groundwater, which is the requirement here. We respectfully submit that the application is eligible for issuance of a natural resources special permit. The proposal is sensitive to the natural features near the parcel. They're all situated landward, as I said earlier, a distance of 100 feet or more away. The applicant has adhered to all wetland and other dimensional setbacks. They've agreed to a revegetation plan of 10,710 square feet of native vegetation we're happy to make that a condition of approval, that you get a more in-depth planting plan than what you have before you right now. The buffer that we're proposing will help intercept non-point pollutants such as sediments, and will also provide some natural habitat on the property for our native species. God bless you. Without some objective factual basis, a negative determination cannot be withheld by judicial scrutiny. Here, there's no connection between what we're proposing and any negative impact that might happen to Gardiner's Bay, at least any that I've seen so far in the record. It's incumbent on the board to grant an NRSP where it's unable to set forth a valid and objectionable factual basis for the denial. In reviewing another case that was denied recently on Girard Drive, the court held that the board's written decision failed to relate the features of the proposed addition to the permit criteria in any meaningful way that would uphold the denial. In determining whether a decision by the board is rational, the court must consider whether the decision has a rational basis that is substantiated by evidence. Here, the applicant proposes to remove a very antiquated septic system, replace it with a nitrogen-producing system, the environmental benefits of which should not be given short shrift by the board, as per the court in the British decision. It will replace an old block cesspool that has been there for a very long time with a state-of-the-art system that's specifically designed to reduce the amount of nitrogen that will enter the water. Finally, while there may be few swimming pools on Girard Drive, this is largely a function of the environmental sensitivity of the majority of properties that we see on Girard Drive. The addition of this swimming pool, a very common amenity in the community as a whole, is located in an area of Girard Drive that is not as constrained with the same environmental issues as other properties along that peninsula. It is unlikely to cause or alter the character of the neighborhood as a result, and it will be shielded from view by our landscaping plan. Based on the foregoing, we finally submit that there's no evidence in the record to support the conclusion the proposed addition or swimming pool or deck will degrade, diminish, pollute, or cause the loss of the tidal wetlands on the property.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know how you might respond to the complaint that you're going to change the character of the neighborhood significantly with a two-story structure that's sitting as it is and the pool to the front of the house. That's something else for us to consider. How is this impacting the character of the neighborhood? How does it relate to the houses in the area? How does it relate to Girard Drive in general?
Sure. I don't know if are we able to pull up the plans, just the elevation?
Sure.
I just want to be able to show the board what the elevations look like from the street, because I think you'll see that the way this is designed, the addition fits perfectly into the neighborhood. So this would be the front elevation. That's elevation that you would see pulling into that driveway from the front, from Girard Drive. And here, while you have, you still have your one-story house, you still have another portion of the property that's one story, and you have just that addition that has a second story over it. This is not inconsistent with other houses in the neighborhood.
The pool, moving it closer to the road and affecting the neighborhood.
Yeah, so with the pool, I don't think the pool is going to be visible to people from the street. I do think that the revegetation plan is going to take care of that really well. It's also situated far enough back from the road that it's not going to affect passersby. So if you're walking past this property, our goal is to make it impossible for you to be able to see that swimming pool.
Yeah, so your planting plan will reflect that.
That's right.
In other words, the
That's correct.
species count, size of material, and whatnot for our
Absolutely.
consideration, and what it's going to do to the character of the neighborhood, to the neighbors, and any other control that they might want to see in the neighborhood. Well, I think we're all on the board very sensitive about Girard Drive because we've had many cases there, and all of them take for careful consideration. In this
Understood.
case here, I respect what you've done with this application to this point, but we do have to consider exactly the impact of that structure in that neighborhood. And I do think, even though you showed us that drawing, that's a sizable structure added to a very minor structure. So it's something for us to consider. I think there's some benefits in what you've offered, but that is something, that's a consideration. And I know it's going to be a consideration on the part of the public as well. That's all.
Okay, thank
Bear
you.
that in mind.
Denise, I hope I explained this right.
Okay. No worries.
On your survey, on the Napeague Bay side, where you have the proposed revegetation by the proposed path.
Yes.
And then also, in front of the proposed addition, you have revegetation there as well.
Correct.
Would you be in favor of sort of increasing that buffer on the, to the property path to sort of increase that buffer to the shoreline? In lieu of,
I'm sorry, so we would go,
so sorry, you have to get up, but right there, I'm talking about right there. Would it be possible, would you be in, to kind of, in lieu of what you have in front of the proposed additions, which is being pointed to by Brian? So we could take away a little of that and put it toward that buffer, to give us a little bit more of a buffer to the shoreline. Would that be acceptable to you?
I don't see why that wouldn't be acceptable
Okay.
to the client. I really don't. I think that's actually a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
But I will certainly ask him and make sure, but Britton, I don't know if you know about that.
Does the board have any other questions?
May I follow up on what you were just asking,
I don't know how to turn this.
Madam Vice Chair? So, because I couldn't see, I know which area you're talking about. It's like where that sort of white semicircle approaches, right?
Yes.
But I just didn't know how much you were talking about adding. Were you
Yeah,
talking about filling in
Well,
that
I
whole
don't
thing?
think, I mean, it's nice to have this vegetation here, but I don't think it's all.
Right.
I mean, even if you cut it in half or just had less, I'd rather see it on the,
Right.
On the other
on
side.
the other side to
Right.
give us more of a buffer to the shoreline there versus in front of the addition.
I think if I can leave them just enough room to have a little bit of a
Yes.
backyard, I think they'd be very happy with
Yes.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, that existing garden to the south is going to be removed, and you're
Yes,
going to be
ma'am.
putting proposed revegetation, yeah. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Well, I still have concerns, yeah, as mentioned in the tab about the pool, that there are none. It says almost none, but I didn't see any at all on the whole length of Girard Drive. I just still have some concerns about that. which will take into consideration if they're hearing the planning department, but it will change the character of the neighborhood as it's stated in the TAM. I was concerned, I would like to know more about the significant amount of trees that have been removed from the property. And I don't know how much, are there trees planned in this re-veg plan? I don't know. I don't think we have the re-veg plan yet, right?
No.
We just
Not yet. That would
showed
be a
the
condition of
areas of
approval.
revegetation, but you don't have a detailed plan showing the species, the number, but
And there
we're
is a
happy to
very
put that together.
large mature tree right near where that pool is proposed to go, so I believe that will probably be removed.
And do you have any objection to it being like, and not just beach grasses, but bayberry, beach plum?
Not at all. No, whatever suggestions the board had. I mean, our plan was to work with the board or the planning department.
Okay,
depending
that
on
would
your
be great if you could
suggestion,
do that.
to pick the species.
Any other questions? Are we ready for the planning department?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Brian Frank from the Planning Department.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing
do.
but the truth? Thank you.
Excuse me. So I wanted to bring up the aerial, this is in your file. This is the northern portion of the peninsula of Girard Drive. You know, we know that Girard Drive is an area of high environmental sensitivity. It's a north-south oriented peninsula that separates Accabonac Harbor from Gardner's Bay. It's in two different critical environmental areas. It's its own critical environmental area, part of Accabonac Harbor. It's also part of the Peconic Estuary critical environmental area. It's an important bird area, is designated by the Nature Conservancy, and it's an area that has a lot of protected natural features up and down the peninsula. Pardon me, again. On the Gardner's Bay side, there's really no dune on the unarmored portions of the property. It's the entire peninsula has low elevations, not really much of a dune to speak of. It's all just a cobble beach till you get to the shoreline. On the east side of Girard Drive, there are areas there are low areas that are freshwater, either brackish wetlands, pockets of them south of the subject property that are often regulated and are part of the protected natural features of the area. And as you go farther south, there's more natural vegetation. So there's less clearing, less landscaping, more of the vegetation that constitutes duneland and beach vegetation and as defined by the town code. And that's also a protected natural feature. As you go farther south, there are areas where the Accabonac salt marshes come right up to the edge of Girard Drive, again, adding to the sensitivity, the flood-prone nature of the peninsula, and its environmental significance. But this area is the least sensitive portion of the peninsula. This property is in an area where there's about a little over 1,000 linear feet of shore hardening. You can see it on the aerial here, either in the form of bulkheads or rock revetments. A lot of the clearing is pre-existing non-conforming, including on this property. So in a very sensitive area, this is in the planning department's assessment, or objectively, this has fewer protected natural features than other areas of the peninsula. And I wanted to have this in your file for reference. I do think there's one swimming pool somewhere on Girard Drive. If I'm wrong about that, I won't swear to it. And I thought it was in this photo, so I'm less confident than I was 30 seconds ago when I said that. But I do think that's the case.
This is a current one, right? Current.
This is a 2024 aerial, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's 2023 because our 2024s are not that sharp. I tend to use 2023 unless there's a reason to use something more recent. So I want to switch over to an aerial now of more of the actual property, unless somebody has a question about the general area that's on the screen right
I
now.
thought you had an older photo also from the GIS. in
I
there.
do have that
It showed
available.
Vegetation.
I do have that available if you're interested, but right now, I was just going to switch over to, and this is 2024 because it's a reflection of the current conditions. The application does represent a significant change to the property. It's more than doubling the size of the house. There are, at best, there are few swimming pools on Girard Drive. It hasn't been that long that public water has been available on Girard Drive, and the concept, if you remember, before public water was available on Girard Drive, potable water was very, very limited on Girard. The concept of adding a swimming pool when salt water was destroying people's dishwashers, and often people needed reverse osmosis filtration to have drinking water. The concept of a pool was preposterous, and for better or for worse, there is a public water main that comes down Girard Drive that limits that sensitivity. But it is still a change to the neighborhood. There are probably, I don't want to speculate how many properties might be capable of having a pool without variances, but I do think it is important to keep in mind that the application does not require any dimensional variance. The structure meets the addition meets the 100-foot minimum setback required of the code. The leaching portion of the sanitary system meets the 150-foot recommended setback for upgrades, not new sanitary, but upgrades of existing sanitary systems in harbor protection. So it doesn't require variances. The board has to determine if this meets the special permit standards. Those are the parameters that the board has to evaluate the application. I am going to switch over to the survey in a minute because I do want to talk about that, a couple of the recommendations that the planning department had.
Can I ask you a question, Brian, before you go?
Sure.
Do we, I'm not sure, maybe I'm missing it. I'm looking at the plan. I don't see the first floor elevation. You know what the first floor elevation is on this property, on this proposed structure?
It should be on the survey. When we look
Okay,
at
I'll
the
look
first
on the
floor
survey.
elevation of the
Yeah, okay.
existing residence, I'm pretty sure, I'll look it up. I think it's on the survey, but I'm pretty sure they're in an AE10 zone, which will
Oh,
require.
it does say 10-4. Yeah.
Okay.
10-4. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
But the addition probably has to be 12 feet above sea level to meet New York State's 2-foot of freeboard requirement.
But the whole house, the rest of it,
Oh, it's an X, then I'm mistaken.
It's an X?
Okay. All right, I'm gonna switch over,
Yeah.
if that's all right. Yeah, the improvements, it's not super sharp. I don't know how well you can see it at that distance, but the improvements are in the X flood zone, not the AE zone. The planning department does believe that an appropriate separation of groundwater is pertinent on this application. Number one, it is a requirement in the Harbor Protection Overlay District regulation. There is a very thin line, we kind of just discussed this. There's a very thin lens of fresh water that sits on top of the salt water in this area. The peninsula in general is going to be one of the more sensitive areas to sea level rise over time. So designing for a more conservative groundwater elevation is appropriate. The health department is using an elevation of 1 foot above sea level as the highest expected groundwater elevation for the leaching portion of the sanitary system. And it's the planning department's recommendation that both the swimming pool and the foundation adhere to that elevation or depth, depending on whether you're going from top to bottom, for both design. The applicant has amended the survey to include the 2-foot separation on the proposed swimming pool. We don't have a foundation profile in the plans here, but the planning department recommends that that also be designed to be meet that same highest expected groundwater elevation. That's one of the recommendations that the planning department has in conjunction with approval here. And the other has to do with the revegetation. A 10,000 plus, a 10,700 square foot revegetation area. It's a sizable revegetation. It's a laudable plan. But the planning department also wants to see a plan that's realistic to implement. And, you know, in my experience, when you have vegetation proposed right up to a structure, it's not practical. It may not even be that safe, depending on what's being planted there. It makes the inspection process a little bit more potentially problematic, and nobody wants to make multiple trips, especially when a homeowner is looking for a certificate of occupancy to close out construction. And there is an opportunity to just adjust the clearing boundary. And the best way to do that is to get a little bit of better separation from the west side of the residence, where it's right up to the house now, and maybe even around the garage.
Right.
And in doing that, pull that, you had mentioned it, Vice Chair Savarese, that proposed clearing edge is, I think, about 45 feet from the wetlands. If you pull that back a little bit, it becomes compliant with the 50-foot
Right.
code minimum separation. So it's not necessarily that the planning department is recommending a mild reconfiguration. And in terms of the species composition, you do have a lot of grass. You have soil here now. There's obviously lawn and vegetation. May not be the best place for just beach grass, but coastal species are appropriate. You had mentioned bayberry and beach plum. I think those are among the most appropriate species for the revegetation, along with switchgrass, especially in the area above the leaching field. You really can't have trees or shrubs above these leaching systems. Now you need you need less robust roots, more fibrous roots than woody roots above these leaching structures for them to function properly. I'm not adverse to seeing trees planted here, but trees in high coastal in high exposure coastal areas are a little hit and miss sometimes. If those species haven't been grown in a coastal climate, often the shock of them getting established in one, they burn, they die, and in general, again, I'm not going to object to it if they say, gosh, we want to put back some oaks because we have them on the property now. I wouldn't object to that, but I do think when you're looking at taller vegetation, you got to be careful where it comes from. Otherwise, you risk the loss. I think that was everything that I wanted to share with the board. If I can answer any questions about the application, I will.
What are the questions?
Thank you for Brian. Brian, you call out the different, sort of zones and areas that the parcel sits in. But can you comment on the CARP plan with respect to this application? CARP is part of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is cited in 255-111. Obviously, as you said, this particular part of Girard is less vulnerable than the others. But from the CARP perspective, could you just share, because it talks about the whole peninsula being among the highest risk and focus areas. So I just didn't know.
Well, I did review the CARP plan in conjunction with this application. I reviewed the recommendations specifically for Girard Drive and Accabonac, and it was hard to apply any of the specific recommendations to this property because this isn't in one of the higher risk coastal zones. It's not, I don't want to say it's not a flood prone property. I don't know that that's fair to say anywhere on Girard Drive, but I do think it's fair to say that this is one of the less flood prone areas of the peninsula. And it was hard to, I didn't identify a specific tangible recommendation that would be applicable to this application.
How long have those bulkheads been there, basically? How long?
I don't know exactly, but at least they go back to at least the 80s. I think some of them go back to the 50s. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think the bulkheads up here are pretty old originally.
And they've never been breached since they've been up.
I don't know if they've been breached. We have had bulkhead reconstruction applications in this area. I hope it's in the TAM, what coastal erosion zone it's in. It's probably in 3, if not 4. If not, then shame on me for not including that. But it's definitely not in coastal erosion zone 2 at the north end of the peninsula here.
Thank you.
Just ask one more. Just for perspective, obviously, the revegetation is a key mitigation, but the 2015 CO survey had the existing clearing at like 12,376. And then the first survey that was submitted by the applicant, and I guess this current one still shows, again, the existing is changing at 22,000. I couldn't tell from the aerials, the history. When did all of that clearing?
Well, clearing is challenging to calculate just from the aerials, because if you have trees within a lawn area, we consider that as cleared. And that may have been the case in 2001 when there were definitely more trees on the property. There is a notation in the building history that there was an assessment of the clearing, and I think it was around 2015 or
Yeah,
16, about the pre-existing nature of the clearing, and the revegetation is, bringing it to either at or
Right back to
close
work.
to HPOD clearing. So I didn't spend that much time, digging deeper than that.
Okay, thank you.
We're good? Thank you, Brian. Matt or LTV, are there any other callers? Anyone in the audience wish to make a comment? Denise, would you like to?
Wait, I thought,
Somebody
there's
raise
a
their
hand
hand.
up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Yeah, just come forward, thank you. You're hiding behind the dais. I need to,
Yeah,
just
I'm a resident of
who
Gerard
you
Drive,
are.
Diane Frenay.
Diane,
Frenay, F-R-A-N-E-Y.
Can you pull the mic closer to you, please? Thank you.
F-R-A-N-E-Y.
and do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a resident at 107 Gerard Drive, and my sister lives next door to me at 111 Gerard Drive. 109 Gerard Drive has now been split between our two properties, so that's why we're, 107, 111. And it was actually yesterday that we found out about this hearing. One of our neighbors, the McElroys, were walking the street, and they happened to see that the notice in front of the house. I drive by that all the time, and it wasn't there. I mean, it just suddenly appeared maybe a day or two ago. So I quickly notified my next door neighbor, who is actually next door on this property. I guess that would be the east side on the right there. And he bought the property about 2 years ago. And he lives in the city. I immediately emailed him. He knew nothing about this tonight. He's right now in the process of making this huge renovation on his property. There's been workmen there for the last 3 weeks. So he was totally unaware of this, and that second floor is definitely going to be affecting him. And then I went across the street to the Rugg property, which is, I think, 108 or 106. And I actually took a picture on my cell phone. That's that little house that when you first turn onto Gerard Drive, it's that iconic one that everyone always sort of photographs and
Yeah, I
paints.
know the one you mean.
And the sign of this hearing is still on the taped to their door. So they, again, are totally unaware of that this happened. I don't even have their email or phone number, so I wasn't able to make them aware of this. So,
Well,
No,
I
I
very
s-
much appreciate your concerns, and we will leave the record open for 2 weeks for
Okay,
you to submit
you.
any comments you may have.
right. There were some other things I wanted to comment on, and there was talk here now about flooding. I mean, we've lived on this land now for over 60 years, and I personally have seen the last 20 years that I've been living here year-round, this property flooding, and the bulkhead gets completely not completely, but partially dug out, even on a nor'easter. It doesn't have to be a Hurricane Bob or, there are other hurricanes that we've had. A good nor'easter just I've seen it like 5 feet deep behind that bulkhead. And the Ketchums, who used to live there for 20 or 30 years, I mean, he would just get a dump truck and fill it with sand and get it dumped there and, fix it all up again, and that was it. So with this property flooding for the next storm, with all this second story and all that kind of stuff, I don't even know how they're even going to get in there to replace that bulkhead. And that bulkhead was, I remember I was a little girl, that bulkhead was put up in the very early 60s, and the wooden jetties that they had there which, there's only a couple of structures left now, but that was put up in the early 60s. The other things I wanted to mention is, the character of the neighborhood. I mean, I think there's 3 second-story homes that just are in the process of one is completed and one is all the way at the end of Girard Drive that is going on now, a second story, all the way down at the end on the Acabonic side. And I just paddleboarded in front of that today. I was just shocked to see how big it is. And again, that's a second story. And then I think there's one more that recently is constructed with the second story. So like the character of the neighborhood is changing. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there was very few second story homes. I think my house probably was one of the only ones that was second story, and that was done in the early 1970s. And the swimming pool, there is one pool. The Conways have a pool on the Acabonic side. I've been on their property. They're friends of mine, and it's I think it's like a swimming lap type pool. It's very shallow, and that's the only pool that's on Girard Drive, because I walk and run that property almost every day. And as far as the vegetation goes, I mean, my sister and I, after Hurricane Bob, we planted over 20 cedar trees, and they were from North Carolina. They were not local. We had to put irrigation in to keep them going. They all died. Every single one of them's died, even with the irrigation. The winds that blow, if you have a windy winter, those first few years when the trees are still small, they were 8 feet high when we put them in. They're just all been cut out now because they all died, even with the irrigation that we had to put in. We've also tried bayberry and beach plum, again with irrigation, and they've died. I think 4 have survived, but the rest are all dead. So let me see, the wooden boat, the early 60s, the pool, third time, second. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. But, I know that, a lot of people were upset at that second story that just got completed about how much it changed the character of the neighborhood. I think that's 2 properties. No, it's the next property, the abutter on the the west side. We still talk when the neighbors get together, how when you turn onto Girard Drive and you see that second floor structure, that's the first thing that you see, and how much that has changed the character of the neighborhood. So thank you for the additional 2 weeks. Thank you. That's all.
Does anyone else from the audience
Excuse me
wish to
1
speak?
second, ZBA. I just need to do another comp check, and to answer your question about phone calls, there were 0 calls on the line. I had a message from a viewer that they did not hear me, and now I hear myself, which is great. Just wanted to state for the record that there were 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Denise, would you like to summarize or make a final statement?
Thank you.
I need that microphone, please.
Hold on.
I'll be very, very brief and just agree with all of Brian's recommendations. I know we've submitted a revised plan for the pool separation from groundwater, but we'll make sure we get you the separation for the footings too of the addition. I don't have, as far as all of Brian's comments, I mean, yes, and yes to everything that he's recommended
All of the above.
in there. And as far as maintaining or keeping the record open, we're happy to keep it open for 2 weeks. We understand it is short timing. Even if you get notice 10 days before, it's still short timing. So we would be fine with that as well. And honestly, that's all I have left to say.
And for the record, if you'd like to take, I did make 2 copies of every letter because that's what I do.
Thank you.
So if you'd like
Okay.
to have these, I'd be more than happy to give them to you. These are the letters. They came in quite late, so you probably haven't seen them.
Do you think 2 weeks is enough?
Well, that's all, that Jameson and I felt that was enough, and nobody seems to think it's not enough. Denise, would you want to have time to respond to the 2 weeks, or we want to just finish at the 2 weeks? No?
I think we're fine with the 2 weeks, just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone else seems to be too. Okay. So in the matter of the application of 101 Gerard Drive, LLC, 101 Gerard Drive in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-41-2-11.2, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the record open for 2 weeks for public input or comments.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Thank you.
Just looking at it. It's,
Next one.
yeah. Do you need paper?
Thank you.
Paper, but bigger paper.
Ready for our next hearing? Our next hearing is Carolyn Purcell Smith, 22 Robbins Way in Springs, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-103-6-19. Size and location is 19,950 square feet. 22 Robbins Way, Barnes Landing, Section 5, lots 686 through 688, filed October 24th, 1957, map number 2769 in Springs. The description is to allow fence, wood retaining wall, stairs, pool patio, HVAC units, and pool equipment with associated fencing and gravel to remain on a property that is within 100 foot of freshwater wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and 6 variances of 76.5, 40 feet, 33 feet, 32 feet, and 22 feet pursuant to 255-430C. The East Hampton Town Code are required to allow the fence to remain 23.5 feet, wood retaining wall 60 feet, stairs 67 feet, pool patio 68 feet, and pool equipment with associated fencing and gravel to remain 78 feet from a freshwater wetland where 100 foot is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, Zone X flood zone, and the seeker class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, I want to remind the board and the public, this hearing, as you can see on the poster, the original date of the public hearing was July 30th. They had the affidavit submitted prior to that. Everything was properly noticed. We then left the hearing open, continued the hearing to September 17th, which was the date that we stated at that meeting. The applicant requested additional time, so at the September 17th meeting, we stated October 22nd as the date certain for this hearing date. So in that case, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Good.
And just a note that this is a continuation hearing, council.
Hello, my name is Jackie Hubbard, here again on behalf of the applicant, Carolyn Purcell Smith and Michael Smith. Just a note for the record, last time I appeared, my last name was Morley, last name is Hubbard now, same me, so just letting everyone know, in case there's any confusion on there. In the interim, as we has just been stated, we previously were here in July. In August, I met with Jameson and also with Morgan and discussed this property with them. As part of those discussions and in our coordination with the town, we took the time to contract with Grimes Land Design and put together a proposal for a revegetation plan to have additional buffering vegetation included on the side of the property that is in between the flagged wetlands and particularly around the pool and the masonry patio. Just of note from that, the applicant has removed the wall that was noticed, so the wall is no longer there, so we're not requesting that variance anymore. As you can see, we tracked along, there's a a contour line that, 12 contour line that we included additional proposed vegetation along there. There is a existing umbrella pine they would like to keep, so it's built around that. You'll see that on the lower corner there. This will run again all the way along the bottom of the property, adding to the already existing wooded area and compiling on top of that existing buffer from the previous iterations of this property, and the existing 10-foot buffer that's between the fence and the structure. This is just, of course, to mitigate again the masonry and the pool. Of note from the previous hearing regarding the fence, there was a question about if this was the fence that was previously noticed for this property. And when I spoke to Morgan, we did agree that the fence on the at the rear of the property is the fence that was noticed. So, and it had previously been located off the property boundary line and is now placed on the boundary line. In general, it is customary, obviously, to have fences on, as close as possible to that boundary line, if not on the boundary line. And, of anything differing from that could obviously create an out of possession issue for the out of title possession, an out of possession issue for the client with title, any future, boundary line agreement that might have to happen there. So we're just making note of that here, that that is very customary and very normal to have that fence on that boundary line. At this time, we've, as I said, we submitted the plan for your review, and I'm just here to answer any questions the board might have in relation to the plan in this application.
I'd like you to explain the fence again. The fence that concerns me is the one that is on the property line, all the way down, and it seems to run around. I did look at the property again, and it's 4 foot, and then it's got a couple of feet of more, bringing it to 6 feet. Is that fence, has that been approved on anything, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
I don't know what this line is on that diagram you sent in, that
This
runs
one?
wooded. It says wooded. What's that indicative of? It certainly looks to me like that chain link fence on the property line could be moved in. I was concerned about, wildlife being able to wander around the neighborhood.
Yeah, there was a concern about habitat right there, right? So,
It came up with the last year.
Right, so I guess our concern moving it again would be to then additionally disturb what's grown around it, I presume, and also moving it off the property line does create potential for an out of possession with any neighbors, and it does cause a title issue in the future.
Well,
for the
if
client.
somebody tries to make that claim.
Right. I'm sorry, could you, I'm having a hard time hearing you about this title issue.
I'm sorry. So, I mean, generally anything over 1 foot off the boundary line will raise an issue at any kind of future transaction with this property or neighboring property, because it'll come across as an issue of the boundary between. But I'm not describing this well.
I think that's not the question. I think the question is more about the protection of the habitat near the wetlands. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the question. So Tam picked that up too. We can hear from Brian from that later too, but.
I do just want to clarify, though, that I think her explanation is an answer to that concern. If the board is suggesting that you relocate the existing fence from the property line and relocate it more in towards the house, that potentially you do create an out of possession title concern. So that's what that response is to your question. The response to that could be, I guess you could put a gate. It's getting a little bit
it kind of gets a little
complicated.
attenuated and complicated, because what I'm trying to say too is, if you want us to move that fence off the property line again, you're going to redisturb or disturb what's there now. And then also, like Jameson just pointed out, if we can't, if we're losing access to part of our property, because that is where the meets and bounds of the property are at the fence line now, you're essentially forcing the applicant to have to deal with potentially claims against part of their property because of that fence. So it's typical, and I'm sure most people here and you all have your fence as close to your property line as you possibly can. That's not out of the ordinary. But maybe we're talking past each other. But
I'm not talking about claim, just in general, the wildlife movement, and if it were closer to the house, it would be an improvement for that.
But it also is an issue of. Well, it also isn't.
If it's 5 feet off your property line and somebody puts something on that 5 feet, you would tell them you can't do that. You know, I don't want to get into a legal discussion here on claims.
Right, but then you're requiring the applicant to then defend their claims against part of their property that they currently are in good possession of, and the issue just becomes that we're then have to defend ourselves in that situation. But I understand, we understand your concern as well.
Yeah, I think you're here defending yourself on the situation because it's an NRSP to begin with. So,
Right.
I mean, whether, so that's why I think that's the basis of the questions coming before you on the fence. So.
Understood.
Now, how do you feel about the recommendation? Morgan Slater, in her October 18th memo, recommends instead of the use of grasses in the wetland buffers, that she suggested additional native woody species with a leaf litter or pine mulch ground cover. Would you have a problem with that?
No, absolutely not.
I don't want to interrupt. Did you finish your presentation? Because I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was prepared to answer your questions. I apologize if I wasn't clear.
I want to jump in if you were still going to continue. I just want to go back to this is a continuation of the last hearing. So there were many elements that were discussed by the board. The increase in the as-built coverages versus what was approved, the masonry deck the masonry patio becoming bigger and replacing a deck. I won't go through them all again. I know you came in with some revegetation. I remember Mr. Chair did talk about wanting to see more mitigation. And we left the hearing open for a while. So just wanted to get the take, if you might, on, aside from taking out that low retaining wall, nothing else, I'm correct that nothing else is being changed in terms of the things that were done relative to what was approved at this point?
Right, everything else is staying the same in our application, but we did remove the retaining wall. And I would maintain again that even though, as you indicated, the deck and masonry change, the property itself is, is not in any danger of being over coverage or over clearing. We are in compliance, well in compliance for those measures. But I understand your point.
Right.
So everything else is as it was when we were first here, except for the retaining wall, and obviously this new proposed plan.
Any other questions?
I don't
Want to hear
have
from
any.
Morgan?
I would like to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you, Morgan?
Good evening, Board. Morgan Slater for the Planning Department.
You swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm mostly just going to comment on the submission, the new submission, because I feel like I covered most of the application at the prior hearing. The revegetation includes additional plantings in the wetland buffer to the south of the residence and the west of the pool area. And then they also removed the retaining wall, which appears to be the only structural change in the application, and that was about 60 feet from the wetlands. With this revegetation plan, the overall clearing limits are decreasing by about 1,400 square feet, and that's going to reduce the total clearing to 11,100 square feet, where 14,953 square feet is the maximum allowable. I looked back at my memo, and I did have the wrong number in that, so the correct number is 14,953.
Yeah.
The woody species in the revegetation plan are appropriate, but we would like to see more, just that results in a more robust buffer that's less likely to be mistaken for landscaping or lawn. And with the proposed re-veg, the clearing limits will be 2,845 square feet less than what was approved in 2019. The actual revegetation plan that was implemented was a little larger than what was approved. And basically, essentially the board needs to discuss if this properly mitigates the additional coverages and decrease in wetland setbacks that were the as-built structures, and how it differed from the original approval in 2019. And I can answer any questions the board may have, especially about the application itself, since it's been a couple months.
Any
Yeah,
questions?
show me where you're recommending the additional buffer. Based-
Well, it's not an increase in the area of the buffer. It's just species recommendations. A lot of these, the circles are shrubs, and then the rest are either ferns or grasses that are proposed. And those can, be mistaken as landscaping or lawn. So throwing some more woody vegetation in there would just result in a more protected
And it's
buffer.
along the area that they're proposing?
Yeah, it's basically in addition to the buffer that was implemented as a condition of the 2019 approval, and then a little bit more on the west side of the property.
I think you're just referencing that as in lieu of the beach grasses to,
Oh, yeah, I think it's a little blue stem and some Pennsylvania sedges.
right.
So we usually recommend, pine needle mulch or leaf litter.
Instead of that,
ground
on
cover,
that,
yeah.
that whole side.
And you feel that's adequate mitigation compared to all the things that have been done with the stone near the pool and all?
It is an environmental improvement to the overall clearing on the property. I think the question is if it is in keeping with the 2019 approval. The clearing limits, are decreasing by 2,800 from what was approved in 2019. There can't really do much more buffer on this side, on this side of the property, because it would just start to impede on the access around the property at that point. Any additional, vegetation would just go on this side, but that wouldn't really operate as a wetland buffer at that
But I
point.
think lot coverage, if I'm remembering right, was increased by $2,000.
Yes, it was around 2,000.
2,041
Yes,
with the approval.
that is correct. Let's see, I have those numbers. The 2019 approval for total lot coverage was about 3,400 square feet, and the as-built is about 5,500 square feet. So it's about 2,000.
What they took out constitutes what?
We haven't received an updated survey. I think it would be slim to none though, because it was a retaining wall, and it wasn't really a large retaining wall.
If that fence is on the C of O?
On the C of O, the only certificate of occupancy on this property is from like the 80s, so, and fences are not on those surveys.
Right.
So hard to say. I can pull up the building permit that was issued, and that shows where the fence was approved on the last application.
Right.
We're talking about the fence that's cited in your table 2 in the TAM, right? That's the fence you're talking about.
Correct, yeah. So it was just a little bit off the property line in the approved survey right here.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I don't.
I have no questions.
Anybody in the public like to address this application? And is there anybody online?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, you want to close?
Thank you for your time, and I would just say if there is additional vegetation that we should add, and obviously we'll work with Morgan, discuss with her about what changes to this plan we should make regarding the choice of vegetation. We appreciate that, and we thank you for your time here.
I'm sorry, could you speak up? Can you repeat?
I'm sorry, I think I have a little bit of cold too. I just was going to say thank you for your time. We're going to work with Morgan regarding the vegetation plan, and I understand the particularity about where we could add more to this plan too.
Okay, how do we resolve that?
Are you're willing to add more revegetation?
Is that something I'm sure that the applicants would be open to, but I know that Morgan had suggested more. I actually haven't seen her new memo on it. I think that was dated from last week. So I wasn't aware of it, so I apologize if I should have had it. But I know you don't want to leave the record open longer, so
Well, we didn't really want to leave the record open. This is a second shot at this, but I guess
Second bite at the apple?
I guess we might need to, we're going to give it a short time.
Of course,
short time,
absolutely.
Maybe a week or something like that. Board members, I don't know what your thought is.
For more input on
Or, no,
revegetation?
I think if you're saying more re-veg, we can't leave it undefined.
Of course. I
where
think what I would say is, because I haven't seen Morgan's new memo, there's a new one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't,
October 18th.
anything, I kind of said everything that was in
Okay.
the memo. There-
I still would like to be able to, obviously, to represent my clients appropriately, but I'd like to be able to see it. A week, just to keep the written record obviously open, that would be
That's
appreciated, just so I could see that and discuss it with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Yep.
Sure. The matter of the application of Caroline Purcell Smith, 22 Robbins Way, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-103-6-19. I make a motion that we close the public hearing, but leave the record open for 1 week for submission regarding the revegetation.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Next, we have Michael Mizaneski at 29 Whalers Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-152-2-11. The size and location is 8,241 square feet at 29 Whalers Lane, Whalers Cove, map number 8585 in Amagansett. The description is to allow an existing screen porch and roof deck to remain within front yard lot line setbacks and outside of the pyramid regulations. Remove a portion of existing decking, remove and replace an existing swimming pool with patio, install paver walkways, and clear vegetation on a parcel of land containing dune land habitat and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 3 variances are required for this application. 1 variance of 15.2 feet is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow the existing porch and roof deck to remain 4.8 feet from the western front yard lot line where a 20-foot setback is required. 2 variances of approximately 11.5 feet and 8.5 feet are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the roof deck railing to remain 11.5 feet and covered porch to remain 8.5 feet outside of the town's pyramid regulations along the western front yard lot line, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A2 residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, I have reviewed the affidavits of service and posting. Everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this application.
This is in Member Mearing's
Yes, it is.
neighborhood.
Okay. Waiting for the photos to come up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good night, guys.
Night.
Good night, Morgan. Good night, Brian.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is the posting. This lot has 2 front yards. There was 1 posting as opposed to 2, but it was right at the intersection, and it is visible from both sides, but that is the posting that's there. Next slide. This is looking, Whalers runs into this road that's parallel to the dunes, and then over the dunes to the ocean. I think it's known as Raymond Lane. It's not really marked, but this is looking east along a dirt road. Next slide. And this is looking looking up Whalers as you'd be heading towards 27. So that's the other front yard of the property. These 2 photos do show that there's a fair amount of screening around the house that buffers it from the road views. Next slide, sorry. And then one last neighborhood. This is looking west on also that road, Raymond Lane. Again, becomes more of a dirt road. And that's it. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm on the main Whalers side. This is the, I guess you consider this the front entry of the house. There's the garage there, gravel driveway. Next slide. This part of the property is not really in play. This is the, I guess the due, the directions are funny because due north is slightly deceiving from where we think about north, but this would be the north side of the house, and you can see one of the scenic easements that's around the house. Next slide. Okay, so now I've gone back to the driveway. I'm going to go up the steps through that little gate onto the property. You can see there, that is the porch and the roof deck that is in question related to the increased nonconformity. Next slide. And I've just gone all the way into the property. I'm looking back at the house again. You can see to the left, that's the corner of the covered porch and the roof deck. You can see, and next slide. Okay, I've just put my back to the house to give you a wide angle so you can kind of see the full condition of this side of the property. You can see the pool peeking out to the left. You can see there's sort of sand paths, a lot of grass, and then towards the far right, there is a seating area with chairs and a fire pit. I think it's just in sand, not any hardscape in there. Next slide. Okay, I just took a close shot of the existing pool and the coping, and the TAM talks a lot about patio. There's really, I think, mostly just the coping around it. Next slide. And I'm just I'm getting towards the back deck of the house. Again, another view of the pool, its proximity to the house. And then there are a whole stream of pavers that run all the way towards the front gate. Next slide. And this is just the back deck. There's a little bit you can see in the distance, that bump out there. That's one of the elements in the application. It's being removed, that little bump out of the deck. And you can see the vegetation there. I think I just have one more slide here. And this is just the last slide, looking from the beginning of that deck, again, into the east side of the property. And again, I think that's part of the scenic easement that's marked on the survey on the other side of the property. Which should be it.
Thank you. This area has some of the most beautiful dunescapes out here. It's really spectacular.
But it was sad to see, I mean, it's not but when you came into Whalers, the devastation of the pine beetle on that street, it's very hard to see.
Thank you. Eric, thank you. Sure. Yes, I think that's correct.
How's this? Okay, good. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Brown, Ackerman Partners, 34 Panago Road for the applicant. I'm joined tonight by Kirk Lehman, who is the project architect, and my ever sartorially wonderful partner, Andy Goldstein.
But no cap.
This is a property that has benefited from 2 variances granted by earlier iterations of this board, one in 2009, one in 2018. The 2018 variance was granted to then Councilwoman Quigley. Most of the improvements that you see that were approved and constructed under that particular variants were obviously granted to her at the time she owned the property. The current owner, who is our client, purchased the property from her, and in the course of evaluating those earlier approvals, decided that there were some elements of those approvals that just simply were things he did not want to do. For instance, the swimming pool, as you can tell, is a very odd shape. It's larger than the current applicant wants. So he would like to redo that. There is one thing in Tyler's memo I did want to address. In the 2018 variance for there is second floor living space up there. That was the decision was made by the client, by our client, not to build that out. So there is currently 900 additional square feet of living area that could be put on the second floor of the house. Our client is willing to formally forego ever building that if we can reprogram some of that square footage and that space to address both the screen porch and the railing above it.
And would that be in the form of a covenant?
Or whatever. Jameson, do you have a preference? I mean, we would be happy to do a covenant, whatever you guys want to do. I mean, we could put it, if you wanted to do it as a modification within the, to extinguish that's a 92, just so that the board is aware, it's a 92% reduction in the previously approved space. So you're talking about losing over 800 square feet of living space on the second floor. And I know Tyler in particular was very concerned about the effect of looming over the street, and certainly second floor living space would, and that's exactly the drawing. The second floor living space, I think, would probably be of most concern. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board members, you have any questions?
I don't really have any.
No.
I mean, the one question that the front yard nonconformity is an extreme nonconformity.
It is very nonconforming.
And so that is increasing by a foot, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on extreme, and I'm not questioning it. So the question comes up in the code where it limits the expansion of nonconformities,
right,
especially section 255-142.
Correct.
Right? So you want to speak to that on increasing the nonconformity relative to that, and whether or not there was a question whether or not the board is empowered to grant that.
Yeah.
But I think also in 255-8, 60. There's another section that has to do with nonconformity, but I think it refers to, that does limit the board, but the limitation of the board there is the 50% rule.
Correct.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah, I would obviously defer to Jameson on that, but we would think that limitation in the 50% universe would allow the board to proceed. Jameson, do you think that's?
Yeah, this question came up in our pre-meeting.
Yeah.
And just with very limited information, because I didn't look into the whole file before the question came up. I was just reminding the chair, and the vice chair was also there, that the figure used shall be that which existed on the date the building first became non-conforming. And that, that's hopefully is in your materials.
Yes.
And Tyler kind of said, yes, it's in the materials.
Yeah.
And he is confirming that calculation.
Okay.
Which is why we moved forward. But I just raised it,
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I don't disagree with that analysis. And certainly if the board wants to leave the record open for a while, we can certainly, brief it more fully or provide you with whatever, additional information.
No, I think clarification on that. I just wanted to bring that up for a point of discussion.
I know, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Mr. Chair.
So anyway,
Okay.
Go ahead. Any questions? Any other questions?
I'll sit down and let Tyler talk. I'm sorry.
No, may I just ask the increased nonconformity? Did you discuss why or how that happened.
Can I defer to Kirk Lehman? He's been on the project since the beginning, so he'll.
Announce yourself and who you are.
Kirk Lehman, AML Architecture.
And Kirk, do you swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I don't know how the oversight came, but it was during construction. The existing porch, I've been told, was basically nailed right to a window casing. And when they go to replace the window, they could not remove the window without removing the porch. Putting in the new window, they extended the porch over. I thought it was 9 inches. That's what I was told. Apparently it's a foot from the survey. Maybe it was a different surveyed corner. But basically it was because of this replacement window, and the corner post was nailed directly to the casing. It was an old 4x4 kind of post, and they replaced that and replacing the window.
All right. Any questions?
Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I have no questions.
All right, Tyler?
Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department.
Tyler, do you swear firm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So the subject property is located at the southern end of Whalers Lane in Amagansett. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing swimming pool and construct a smaller, less sprawling swimming pool, along with allowing a covered porch and roof deck to remain within front yard lot line setbacks and outside of the town's pyramid regulations. The project requires several variances from the town code to allow the previously non-conforming residences decking to remain as reconstructed, even more non-conforming than previously constructed, along with a natural resources special permit in order to reconstruct the previously approved swimming pool in a similar location with a different layout. The deck extension appears to have been completed sometime after the most recent CO was issued in December of 2020. The porch and second story decking had been located 5.9 feet from the front yard lot line at that point and was reconstructed, enlarging the porch and decking, and is now located 4.8 feet from the front yard lot line. While not a significant difference in the setback, the existing porch was extremely pre-existing non-conforming to front yard lot line setbacks as well as pyramid, and any increase in the non-conformity can have substantial impacts on the neighborhood, especially within the front yard lot line setbacks. The requested increase in front yard setbacks and pyramid nonconformity increases the looming nature of the existing residence already had. The board will need to carefully consider how these changes meet the variance standards, especially considering the project was completed without the benefit of building permit. And also weighing that the mitigation of abandoning that previous approval, which would have added additional massing to that second story. A building permit appears to have been active on the property in order to replace windows and doors, but no permit was ever issued for reconstruction of the porch and decking. The proposed work to the swimming pool and associated patio will help to increase the conformity with the town code. The patio essentially was already removed, but there is a patio approved in the ZBA's application back in 2018, which was in front yard setbacks. And so that's not only gone now, but will be gone in perpetuity if approved. They had received that front yard lot line setback variance, which is being eliminated entirely. The pool is being pulled closer to the residence, more concise footprint, and a paver walkway is proposed to access the swimming pool from the existing decking and stairs, replacing a portion of the non-conforming patio. The increase in nonconformity for the porch and decking requires careful and thoughtful review. The residence stands out in stark contrast to many of the other homes along Whalers Lane, which are made up of mostly larger properties with residences set back much further from the road. Solid reasoning needs to be established as to how this is not a change in the character of the neighborhood, not a self-created difficulty, is not substantial, and won't have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I got a question, Tyler, and I probably could have asked the applicant as well, but regarding the pyramid variance, it appears to be substantial, but what is the net increase from the previous to the request now?
Be the 1.1 feet.
1.1
Right.
feet, so it's not
Height didn't
11.5
change, it
feet.
just got pulled closer to the road.
It's not 11.5 feet or 8.5 feet, it's an additional 1
An
feet from
additional
the existing.
1.1 versus what it was previously.
So my question is, why wasn't the previous then pyramid variance granted in the previous? It's just a curiosity question that I have.
It had pyramid variances in 2018, but I think the conditions that are there or were there before this construction was done is pre-existing non-conforming.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So that's what you're saying, that the structure that existed before would already required a pyramid.
Correct. It would have if they constructed
If it was new, yeah,
in
yeah.
modern zoning.
Right.
And they required pyramid variances for the work that they're proposing to abandon.
Right.
Just that second story addition required pyramid variances among
Yeah.
a few other things.
Yeah,
So,
the chair's question is the one I would have had, is that what was the
That's a good
change
question.
in mass?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, it was essentially that 1.1 feet, pulling it closer to the road, increased the pyramid by 1.1 feet.
Okay. Any
And
other-
the work that they're withdrawing, there was no permit, they've withdrawn, there is a permit.
There's a ZBA
The
determination
previous
allowing that second story addition, among other things.
And they're
They
withdrawing
did
that.
part of the work, including the swimming pool, I think a sanitary upgrade on that north side of the property. But yeah, that second story addition is essentially what they would be withdrawing or
Okay.
abandoning.
Is the sanitary still going to go in?
The sanitary system is installed.
Oh, it's installed,
Yes.
okay, great.
I just had a quick question, just on, it might be small, but project description, it talks about clearing vegetation. Now, that clearing might just relate to the construction or the taking out of the pool, but I wanted to just confirm what clearing is thought or intended, if it's anything.
I put up, here, let me pull up the, so this is the sketch that we provided for the project limiting fencing. We expect no clearing beyond that. That would be where their clearing boundary would be essentially while they do work. And then re-veg, with beach grass after construction's done would be more than sufficient.
So that area that the pool is to be shortened, and that'll be completely revegetated in the new plan.
Yeah, anything outside of, I think the condition that we suggested was anything disturbed by construction activities.
Right. But it's also the removal of a portion of the pool.
Right.
The pool's coming out.
Any other questions?
I do not.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. It doesn't look like there's anybody here in public. Matt, is there anybody on the phone?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's any need to keep the record open. Eric, do you have any closing statement?
No, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Member
Yeah,
Mary?
can I just grab the agenda and get the tax map number, please?
Can I just say that over the years, I've seen a lot of pools. I've never seen one look quite like that.
It looked very tempting yesterday while I was there. It was a warm day and it was very
Ice cream
tempting.
cone.
Have a motion.
I know. This doesn't have the tax map. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, in the matter of Michael Mizneski, excuse that if I said it wrong, 29 Whalers Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-152-2-11. I make a motion to close the public hearing and close the record.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you.
Thank
you. All right, there was, do we need counsel back in the room?
Where'd you go?
I don't know.
Didn't see her go.
We'll give it a second.
This was taken off. I think we're up to
Yeah, we're gonna
minutes.
do, we have to announce 117
Mhm.
BBA.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to have her back in the room.
I see her coming up the stairs.
Thank you. We did have a scheduled hearing this evening at, which was 117 BVA LLC, 117 Bayview Avenue, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-84-1-3.1. And board members, you know that we've been trying to be as diligent as we can scheduling this along for the applicant, but just want to mention that the hearing tonight was adjourned at the applicant's request.
I also was asked now to state on the record tonight the updated public hearing date. Just give me 1 second because I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. November 19th.
Okay, so this would be rescheduled then for November 19th.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, with that, we move to our resolutions. We have Kevin Sullivan at 165 South Edgemere Street in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-273-17.3. Oh, wait, we have Hispaniola, that was taken off.
That's taken off.
Right.
Who did Sullivan?
Montauk.
That was Terry.
Oh, I did Sullivan.
That was an approval, right?
It was
Yeah.
basically an approval of the entire project. I think there was a dissent on the deck.
I dissented on the deck and the pool. You did the
And I
pool.
dissented on the pool. So I did have comments I sent you.
Yeah, I replied to them and copied the whole board on it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. See the replies, okay. So for the matter of Kevin Sullivan at 165 South Edgemere Street in Montauk, tax map 300-273-17.3, make a motion to approve the resolution as written, the determination is written.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next, we have Paul and Emily Kenyon at 114 South Etna Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-49-2-3.
Actually, that's mine too. I didn't see that one. I don't know how I missed it.
Is there another
I mean,
member?
I know it was, it was for the garage,
Additions on pool.
the garage to be used outside and the indoor garage to be made into recreational space on Etna Avenue. There's a huge additional scenic easement offered, and they will be upgrading the sanitary system to an IA system also. And this was a unanimous approval.
Right, and I read it. I didn't have a problem with it. But
Yeah, so I can deal
I
with that.
read it too.
Too. I was fine
Everybody
with
says
it.
that, okay. So then for Paul and Emily Kenyon at 114 South Etna Avenue in Montauk, and tax map 300-49-2-3, and make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.
concur, thank you. Next, we have Clifford Shapiro at 8 Ocean Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-3-10.
Thank you. This was an application for a 226 square foot addition and a kind of squaring off of the deck and a hot tub. We had a lot of discussion about the revegetation, the addition of a scenic easement, and the board was unanimous on approving this application. Okay, so in the matter of Clifford Shapiro, 8 Ocean Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-3-10, I make a motion to approve the resolution determination is written. Second.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. And board members, that's a wrap.
Anything else? Are we good?
That's a wrap. Vice
make-
Chair?
You want the minutes?
I did.
They didn't
Oh,
put it
yeah, it
down.
wasn't on there. Oh, minutes approval is above it.
10-8.
I didn't.
Yeah, they're out there. Yeah, I looked at them.
Okay, you want to make a motion? on that?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals for October 8th, 2024.
I'll second.
I concur.
I concur.
Sure, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the zoning board of appeals at 8:03 PM.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.